Make any nominations? We don't have a quorum.
I think if by the time we go through public comment, hopefully she'll be here. That's my game plan. I'm very positive or optimistic about this. Because I don't know if Carl's gonna be able, and we can rearrange some things if we need to in the order. But I'm optimistic she'll be here in a few seconds. So our mission, the purpose of the Bismarck Human Relations Committee is to create an atmosphere of inclusion, equality, and accessibility through education and outreach to recognize the value of a diverse community. Go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we will start with public comment. So we've got quite a few guests here. If we want to introduce ourselves
And Marcy,
in your
a document.
document. Yep.
Marcy.
All right.
My name's Dave Pierce. I'm with the Pumpkin Patch, so it's a really busy time of year for us. I'm pleased to have members of the committee, Commissioner Conley, staff. I'm pleased that it's not every year that we get a visitor, and it's not every year, well, we get visitors, but we don't get them from Uganda. And so Eli Kisiri is from Uganda. His main mission in Uganda is that of he chairs the Human Rights Commission in the Wakiso district, which is like the Burleigh County of North Dakota. I'm just gonna let Ellie tell you about what the reason I happened to notice when I knew the dates that Ellie, and we were supposed to have another of his colleagues, Dennis here. Dennis did not make it. But when I knew the dates that Ellie was gonna be here and knowing that he was involved with human rights, I just went to the calendars to see what meetings, what opportunities would I have to connect him with what we do in this country so he could compare and contrast. And lo and behold, you folks happened to meet tonight, so it was a bingo. And so with that, I'll just introduce Ellie.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Thank you, everyone. My name is Eli Kassidie, as you heard. I'm the chairperson for Wakiso District Human Rights Committee. I think the committees major at the local government level. We have the national one, which is the Uganda Human Rights Commission, but then this works in line with the commission to track human rights issues at the local government level using the local government structures. So we have had your mission. We somehow do the same work. We do human rights education, making sure that everyone is aware of their rights. You find that in my country, than here in my country, there is a lot of human rights violations, and the violators use the opportunity that people are not aware about their rights. So we make sure that we create awareness. We do public gatherings. We go to communities. We use radio talk shows. We use all forums, social media, to make sure that we educate the masses, or to empower them and also demand for their rights. We also provide free legal assistance to people who are marginalized, mostly those whose rights have been abused. We have a lot of land grabbing. Wakiso is the biggest district in Uganda with the heavily populated, biggest, and has highlands, but also it works as a domestic for almost everyone who works in Kampala, which is Kampala, the capital city. So it surrounds Kampala. So that makes it a hotspot for human rights violations. So we make sure that, and also makes it prime. Their land is very prime, so there is a lot of land grabbing. So we use that opportunity to provide lawyers to those who can't afford. But also we do research. We make research. Every year we release an annual human rights situation report. And I'm happy to share with you some of the copies of the report. This is the 2023 human rights reports. I'm happy to share with you. We make sure that every year we monitor and release a report that talks about the human rights situation. So the composition, we have judiciary represented by the chief magistrate. We have police represented by the district police commander. We have prisons represented by the prisons commander. We also have civil society organizations. I also sit on the committee. We have media and then the government political and technical wing. So that's briefly about the committee. I don't know if you have.
Get a card. She walked in.
Oh, yeah, I will share with you. Okay.
Do you mind if I give that to him?
Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, so I don't know if you have any question, but the reason why I'm here is to share with you what I do and also find synergies and see how we can always keep in touch, share information, work together, maybe build capacities of maybe our people, because we sometimes we work within a very tricky situation. Also, I'm here to build solidarity. If you need to check on the human rights situation of Uganda, you will see that when a human rights activist is more secure, having people in solidarity with him from international and outside countries, that gives him his security. So coming here, I would want to empower you all to make to work with me, partner with me. We keep talking, we keep sharing information, and also we keep standing together in solidarity.
Thank you so much. First off, where in the country is this district located? Is it central?
Central.
Central?
Yeah.
And then, you said land grabbing was kind of one of the largest issues that you work with. What are some other, I'm sure we can find them, but other significant issues that
Okay.
you guys are?
Okay. I will also share with you. I have a QR code on my phone, which I can share with you, and you access all the reports and that we've done on human rights situation. But we have also issues to do with domestic violence. There is a lot of domestic violence, which is also instigated by the economic situation of people. So we also have issues to do with health conditions. If you see Wakiso has even highlands, I just released the report. I think in 2022, which was looking at it's called the plight, the invisible plight of people at Busi Highland. You will see that the highland totally has poor health conditions. People can't access medical care. Mothers are dying because they don't have a healthy facility. They don't have transport means to pass them via the lake to access to access better health care. So there are a number of health challenges that are facing people in Wakiso, but also we have issues to do with of course, child abuse. We have a lot of child labor cases. We have a lot of sexual harassment. If you see the report released by UN after COVID, Wakiso is ranked as the district with highest teenage pregnancies during COVID. So you find that also puts it in a very tricky situation. But also we have civil and political rights issues when we head to elections. 2026, we shall be having elections, but if you see the reports, Wakiso has been the hotspot of human rights violations during elections. It hosts the biggest number of youth who are agitated, who are unemployed, who don't have opportunities, and that puts them at the hotspot of making sure that they participate in most of the violence acts, but also because also the police instigates because of the high population. The police is always on alert to disperse any idea or any peaceful or any gathering. They don't allow any gathering. So you find that we are dealt with as many civil and political rights issues, and also it also puts us at stake because I will share with you a story that during the 2021 election, I was on spot. My car was broken into twice. I was followed just because we had to monitor elections. We were contracted by UN Human Rights to monitor elections and see that we report all the human rights violations during elections. So we are faced with a number of challenges when it comes to human rights.
I can kind of mention one of those. I know a couple out of Thornton, Colorado. They were going to adopt a brother and sister. And they were on the plane to take off. They went through their required visits. And the last day, individuals from within the government stopped by and said, you have to give us $48,000 or $50,000 within 24 hours, or you can't take them home. And we're going to promise you we'll split up the kids. They'll never see one another again. They didn't have the money. They had to leave them behind.
Wow.
And they decided not to adopt after that experience. So
Uganda.
from Uganda.
Yeah, and it's interesting to tell you that even the airport is found in Wachiso district. It has both rural and urban. It has all the elements you can find in Uganda as a whole, because it has highlands, it has rural areas, it has. It will be interesting for you to look at our social platforms and see most of the issues that we are dealing with. I just finished a case with a Chinese company which just came and took over people's land and started doing stone quarrying without even compensating people, and it had to destroy people's homes. You know, so these Chinese never wanted to listen to anyone, and I had to go to a fight with them to see that at least they institute a compensation system to see that everyone at least is compensated for their land and their property lost. So it's a whole lot of issues that we are dealt with, yeah, when it comes to human rights.
And then are you finding a lot of the issues that you're working in your district, are they kind of common across the entire country, or are they unique to your district specifically?
Most of the issues cut across. In fact, I'm calling it Wachiso, but we find that we receive cases even from other districts, because I didn't tell you where the idea of District Human Rights Committee comes from, but I told you it is supposed to work with the Human Rights Commission. When you look at the local government system in Uganda is underfunded. So the circular came from the Human Rights Commission to introduce human rights committees, but it didn't come with money. It didn't come with a facilitation model. So our district had to look for ways on how to facilitate this district human rights committee. So very few districts have implemented this. It takes the district to look at its local raised revenue to see how they can facilitate at least the operation of the district human rights committee, which for me, I will tell you for the fact that if you speak to anyone in Uganda, they will tell you Wachiso is the only vibrant district human rights committee in the whole country. And we address issues from other districts, and you find that most of the issues are the same, because land is a prime thing when it comes to Uganda. And our lawyers are sometimes constrained that they have to move and cross to the other districts just to hope someone, because there is no way you can say, okay, in Wachiso and someone is suffering in another district that you can't address, yet they are underfunded for sure.
I feel like I can ask questions for the next 6 hours. I'm gonna ask one last one. Is English the largest language spoken in Uganda?
English is the official language, but it is, I want to tell you that those who have gone to school, the ones who can speak English, if I take you to my local communities, Dave has come there. He visited Uganda in 2003, I think. The local people have little education. They don't know how to speak English. If I take you to the communities that I work with, I just finished a big event where I was providing lawyers to over 700 people. And you could see these ladies are raising pertinent issues, but I can't bring them to you to listen what they are saying, because they can't speak English. They are speaking Luganda. So Luganda is the common language used in Uganda. So But a section of people under allies can speak English, but the local people can't speak English, most of them.
So do you have to use translators very
Yes.
often along with?
Yes, we use translators, but for us, we come from Uganda, so we can address them in the native language. Yeah. No, it's okay.
The other thing he should have mentioned, I mean, that strikes me wild is Wakiso District, which is not all of Kampala, but he deals with 1.2 million. So when he heard, I'm not sure who or where he heard the first comment that in North Dakota, we have 700,000. All of our state is not as big as his, the concentration of issues that he deals with.
Yeah, like I said, it's the heavily populated district in Uganda, the biggest.
Well, just west of here is Montana, and they're sizably larger, and they're at 1.2 million.
That's right.
Yeah. So
How do you make sure that there's conversations with people that are experiencing domestic violence or experiencing poverty or experiencing these human rights violations? How do you make sure that their voice is being heard?
okay, we use a number of methods, but it's a case by case issue. Some even don't want to be spoken about. Some prefer their cases being handled in silence because of their security. Others would prefer to come and speak out after they have got remedy to share their stories. So we use a number of forums. We have forums. We also have partners that we work with locally who can provide us some of the forums for people to speak. But what we do when someone's rights has been violated, we respond. So we use many response mechanisms. Like I told you, we provide our lawyers. Doesn't mean that every case goes to court. So we do mediation. We make sure that we at least bring them together and address the root cause of the problem. And then at the end of that, they will even issue documentaries. They sign agreements that this is not going to happen. Or if it is a maintenance issue, they sign agreement that, okay, I'll be able to look after my children and this is what I'm going to do. This is whatever. So at the end of that, if the agreement is not respected, then we go to court. Like I told you, the chief magistrate, who is the head of the court, the judiciary in Wakiso district, sits on the committee. And every section or every sector of government that sits on the committee every month provides a human rights report at the district human rights committee. So we make sure that these issues are addressed. And once we find that an issue needs to be followed up, we make sure that we go to communities. We have even sometimes there are cases which have been very sensitive. I will tell you one case where a lady was had been held like I would say this lady was held at home like a sort of imprisonment by one of the powerful doctors in Uganda, and he had promised her that if she ever talks to someone about it, she will be shot dead. So when we got to know that case, we had to use the media to investigate it because we knew that if we don't expose this gentleman, the lady is going to face this for her lifetime. So we handle issues case by case. Yeah.
I ask you this too, because different countries have different forms of how they address crime and different things. And I like some of the people from, say, Malaysia and those type of areas. If there's a violation, like they kidnap somebody, a lot of times, like the embassy will say the only way you can keep them alive is stop looking for them. Because how they do is that you have to keep them in their place until court time. And if the, say, perpetrator knows that they're in trouble, once they know, they'll kill them before they ever get to court.
Yep.
And things. So there's some of those things that, like even the difference between Liberia and Kenya, where my brother has 2 missions, is different from all of the neighboring countries, but there's a lot of similarities. So those would be unique things to learn too, because human rights as it applies here will apply differently there, just some subtleties.
I agree with you. Like I said, it's case by case. There are cases where we just need to go with police and maybe make sure that the victim is safe before anything happens. There are cases where you just need to report to court, maybe to go through the legal system. There are cases where you just need to take away the victim and put him in a safe house. So we use many methods. There are cases where even yourself, I sit at the board of the National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders, and there we are looking at the safety of the defenders themselves. Even us, sometimes we are not safe. We are attacked, and I want to tell you that after the elections, UN Human Rights was my biggest partner, but the government terminated this contract. It's no longer in Uganda. I don't know if you are aware of that. DGF, it was called the Democratic Governance Facility, was the biggest funder of human rights work. The government also terminated. It was a basket full of European countries bringing money together to fund human rights work. But after us releasing a human rights report, which indicated all the violations that happened during elections, DGF was terminated. And so we also not now we are left in a space where we don't have anyone to look out for us. So we are also not safe, but we see that even at one point, we also have to run away from our homes, and we are put somewhere when it comes worse, like during election time.
How long are you in town?
Yeah.
Yep.
He leaves Wednesday morning.
I live Wednesday.
We're not running him out.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was reading through your human rights situation report. I work a lot with HIV in the state of North Dakota. And one thing that we're running into is that as new Americans or refugees are coming from certain African countries, such as Uganda, it's difficult to engage them or get them into services here, health services, because of the stigma from their communities that they've, been able to settle here with. Is it something that you are working on, is fighting that stigma? And would we be able to exchange some information on strategies to try and engage people and get them into services without harming them, through the stigma?
Yeah, it's something that we are working on, and most of the cases we receive on those HIV infected ladies. If you see, I will be able, I need to get that sure about. I have a full report that is addressing HIV, AIDS, access to ARVs, issues, at the highlight, you would see and you feel like people are sharing ARVs, they can't even access them. So, and people fear to, to speak out, people are stigmatized, and those are the issues. So I'll be happy to engage more. I am leaving on Wednesday, but once there is an opportunity for me to engage, even if online, even if physically, we can always work it out. I'm very open to sharing as much as possible.
Perfect. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just share with you, and just to sort of bring it to a close. Ellie and I are connected through a program called Roots Africa. Roots Africa is essentially trying to mimic the extension service in America and utilize university settings and educational institutions in Uganda and working with agricultural students to move information back to the rural areas to relieve poverty. Ellie is our boots on the ground, because Ellie is so well connected with the educational institutions in Uganda, because his other districts are aligned that way, and his colleagues circulate in those circles. His perfect boots on the ground for Roots Africa, which is what is mostly supporting him now. His work in human rights work so I'm just going to put it in English. the government has defunded his office.
Yeah.
So until the elections are over and until they know where they are with it, they're not going to give him any money to do anything because he's not going to come up with any other violations. There are going to be no more problems.
Yeah.
That's how we handle that. So he just has to sort of survive his way through. And that's how, so he's actually here with Roots Africa. But it would be a waste of our time not to take advantage of an opportunity like this to make these kinds of connections. So that's really great.
I appreciate it. One last question, I promise.
If anyone wants to scan it, they can scan it and access to it. Share them.
Okay, so I have the code here. Okay.
Absolutely. So Dave just mentioned that one of the big issues you're facing is that your human rights organizations are losing funding from the government. And that's a very important thing for these orgs to be funded fully, to be able to help the community and those who are facing human rights violations, right? Yeah, so you at this point have kind of had your hands tied, is pretty much what I'm hearing.
Yep.
Yeah, that's, sorry to hear that.
The reality of life in other countries.
Yep.
The reality
Yeah,
of what happens.
in Africa, I think human rights work, there is a video which I shared with Dave this morning. I don't know if you can access it. Dave should be in contact with one of you and share with their video. When I just finished an event, the governor of the district came out and was calling for people that we can't imagine how much work this committee is doing, but we don't have resources to give it. The government is not appreciating the work that they're doing. And the governor himself is actually calling out for people to support this committee. If in that video, if Dave shares it with you, you will see even the district prisons commander is appreciating and it's like, I'm inside of government, but we don't have resources. But and they are saying they are calling out people to really partner. So I will tell you for a fact we started operation in 2020, but this is the committee which has to move to rural areas. It has to go in villages and track and find facts and evidence, but we don't have even a camp. To do that, we have to use our means. We have to hire cars, we have to use public transport, we have to struggle our way, and that puts also our lawyers and everyone at a risk. Yeah, so, and we have issues that we can share with you that have happened to us in the course of that work. So, but because we have a passion, my human rights, by the way, activism or work has not started now. This is a core that I started while in university in 2008. This is not the first time I'm coming to the US. The first time I came to the US was in 2014, 10 years from now, and I was invited by State Department, the US State Department. I was selected by the Embassy of America in Uganda because of my human rights work I was doing, because of the way I'm empowering young people and youth to demand for their rights. The program Dave has taught in universities to make sure that at least they engage their leaders and make sure that they demand for accountability. That's why I was selected by the US government to come here and share opportunities and also see what America is doing in the human rights work. So this is my second time to come after 10 years, but I have been in this human rights work for a time because of my passion, because of my personal experiences. I grew up in a humble background. I grew up with a single mother. I had challenges while growing up. That's why I motivated myself, and I'm like, I should help that young person there who is suffering the same way I suffered, sleeping in bars, trying to raise school fees for myself, and whatever that I went through. So that's the passion. That's why no intimidation can scare me, as long as I'm hoping that person who is suffering. I got over 2.5 million offer from the Chinese to make sure that the whole cases end, but I refused the money, and that scared them. That's why they had to introduce the compensation committee. Otherwise, they had compromised every person, every leader. They had, and the Chinese, after me refusing the money, he made it clear that you're the only Ugandan who has refused my money since I came to Uganda. And he told me, what do you want me to do? That's when he had to take action. But I couldn't take their money after seeing young ladies, single mothers who were crying, and everyone who was speaking in that forum was like, we hope you also not betray us. And now this Chinese come and wants me to do the same. So, yeah.
The Chinese trying to do with Uganda what they've done to Ethiopia.
I think almost all projects are now going to them. But there is also something I found out, and I'm still investigating, because when that Chinese came to me, he was telling me not to release anything in the media. And he was making a point and saying, my bosses will be mad of me. So I'm like, he's feared, and everyone is saying, Mr. Tang is the, and who is your boss? So I'm still investigating, but I've realized Chinese are being used by some people in government. There are people behind who are investing in money from government leaders connected to the first family, to the president, and they are injecting in money under these guys of Chinese projects.
I'm Geraldine. You and I, we have to connect. I received an email.
Yeah,
that you were
thank
coming.
you, thank you.
Yeah, good to meet
It's
you.
good to meet you, Geraldine.
He is most available on WhatsApp. So the phone number
Yeah,
is for
the
you.
second number, the first number, I don't use it so much, but the second number is the one I use on WhatsApp.
All right. So I wanted to chime in on something and just hope I make this short. But as a human rights activist myself, I'm a Cameroonian by birth, but a US citizen. And we started a revolution back in 2016, which was speaking against bad governance in Cameroon. And as part of that, I was put on no travel list to Cameroon. So I was put on a terrorist list.
Mhm.
And I say this to say one thing about human rights activists, or I'm getting emotional, or people fleeing generally seek refuge in America, and the rhetoric that is like being played over the media in America right now, immigration, how dangerous people like you they are communities. We've had that in this community. I wish this meeting was in a bigger setting where we could just say this out loud. Because people, especially in Bismarck, they haven't been exposed to information like what you're sharing. And living as an activist in Bismarck and hearing rhetorics like that, my number one fear is if something happens and I don't have access to this community, I'll end up being kicked back to a place where my family and I might end up killed.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful for people like you who stay back and do the work on the ground. Because there's so much happening and there's not a lot being spoken about. Because I can't even speak in the community really that much, because the amount of hate within, it's amazing. You were speaking and I was trying my best to block out so much so I don't listen and get emotional. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you first for the work you do, and also for this community for taking this opportunity to listen, because we don't get moments like this that much. And this is just to tell us it shouldn't stop with us just sitting in this room and speaking and listening to information like this. When views come up and they speak about people, we should be able to stand out there and speak up. Because there's some of us who live in this community. I can only say much. I've written a lot of papers. I'm doing my master's right now. Most of my papers are on immigration. They're just things that immigrants face, and I've written like 3 papers that are published in different, and those papers have been censored by the Cameroon government. I've written like 3 articles that are published. They've been censored by the Cameroon government within America. They're being reported. One was even like meant to be pulled down, and I had to remove it and I published it on another site. But yeah, I can keep going on. I would just keep it right.
Good connection.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, so I know sometimes when you think of it at one moment, you like, is it worth it? Worth it, but if you keep quiet, you will speak, you know. We have seen people suffer. We have gone through a lot. But the opportunity like this for me, and I want to thank Dave who has supported me to at least have this moment, because Dave came and just attended my report launch, and he was amazed the work that I was doing, and he offered to support me. So I thank him that at least I can make it to the US and speak to people like you. So, but we need more of you. We need to be together. We need to stand with you. You're the only hope that we have, because if we are left alone, perish, because our governments don't care. You know, you're from Cameroon. President Paul Biya has been there for I don't know how long. Yeah, but you know that my president has also made 80 years. Yesterday was celebrating a birthday of 80 years. He has been in power for 40 years and is not showing any sign of living. You know, so we are facing the same issues, and the more they stay in power, the more they want to oppress and silence any voice that comes up to talk about human rights issues. As I was getting here, the leading opposition leader was hit by a tear gas canister when he was seeing from his party lawyer's home. The party lawyer happens to be actually my best man. He was my best man at my wedding, is my good friend. But Bobby Wine was coming from his home just for a party. The police cordoned off and threw tear gas on his car. He was hit. His legs now is moving on crutches because of just they don't want him to speak to anyone. You know, they can't do anything. They can't do anything.
I just want to say thanks for your time.
I really appreciate both of you being here. I think there's going to be a number of us that will be in touch with you. Thanks again. We really appreciate the work you do and you taking the time to share with us.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is it possible to have a photo?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know how we do it. Maybe just here or whatever. I don't know. I'll do it. Thank you. I'm happy to meet you all.
Yes.
Just go grab a chair. Okay. The other possibility, is this on Dakota Access? It will be. Okay, so I can get. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Do I have yours? Yeah. You're good? Well, this is Billy's camera. Or no, this is yours. Okay. I could be able to get a camera.
Okay. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
And is it all right? Is he allowed to have your nominations? Can he go through and see what people
Yes.
are nominated for? And the agenda for it, Elliot's.
Call me out for the patches over and I'll give you my patches.
Perfect.
Thank you. Dave has a QR code. He will share it with one of you. You can just scan. It has over 4 reports there. One is specific on the health issues that you're seeing in the island. You will see many issues, and I'm looking forward to really improving that community because they are really facing a lot. So let's share. We can see how we can keep. All right.
I'll go back to the website and I'll post it in the contact us things. All that.
Cell phone number as well.
Yep, I did get it.
Thank you again, someone.
I appreciate it.
That was a good connect. A great connect. Thank you. I'm glad. Thank you. Because you're with local neighbors. And we got down from back. This is the connecting. He is on the board.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're well connected. Well, thanks.
All right, so we will move on to, I will consider a motion for the approval of the minutes. We have a second.
I second.
All in favor of approving the minutes? All opposed, say sign. Okay. Upcoming events. So right now I'm tracking Biz Market, which is what, this weekend, correct? And do we have enough volunteers for that?
Amy and I are doing the 9 to 11,
Okay.
and then Jason right now is signed up for the 11 to 1:15.
I am on military orders, so I can't be there. I can plan to at least come up to take down the 2.
Okay. That works.
9 to 11, is there like setup time? Should we be there earlier? Or?
Doesn't matter, just that.
Oh, it doesn't? Okay.
I would
Been hanging out since
honestly probably get there at 9:30.
we didn't know.
Because I've had a booth there for AFSP and we have significantly more stuff. And we were set up in 5 minutes. And if they have the nonprofit booth where they do all the time, it's right from the parking lot. So it's just super quick, easy. Just remember to take some stuff with you if you guys need it.
I'll see if I can find the messages too. I think there was one that's legit, as long as it was by a certain time, but.
I think parking will be the biggest issue with that,
Now
but
we need a table, right?
yes, you have to bring your own table.
Yeah, so I'll bring a table if you bring the stuff. One of you, whoever's tearing down, can one of you take my table,
Yes.
and then I'll get it from you. You can, the whole thing I seem to use it for is other stuff, so.
Okay, any other questions, concerns on Biz Market? Any other upcoming events that we can think about that I'm not considering right now? Okay. We had talked about at the last meeting with Collective Calendar, which I had started collecting some events. However, I realized I put them in my Google Calendar, which does nobody here any good. So I will get them off of my Google Calendar into a calendar template or some sort of organized fashion for you guys. However, if there's any events that you think that our committee should be aware of, please make sure you're getting them either to Whitney or myself so I can get them added on there. Otherwise, we'll kind of chat more about that next month. Questions, comments on that?
I apologize, I was not here. So would this be a calendar of events that we regularly do throughout the year? Is that?
Well, so that'll be on there, but also just events that we think the committee should be aware of, opportunities for us as individuals to go attend the events. So really, since we're all kind of connected in different communities, just sharing that knowledge of what's happening with each other.
You know where?
Did you say that? Bottom, maybe. Oh, yeah. Remember the Heritage Ballroom at the bottom. I don't know what it is, but. Questions, comments on that? Okay, moving on to Sacred Pipe. For those of you that weren't here last month, we had a great conversation with Sacred Pipe. It was here Ashley and Cheryl, talking about housing issues. So I had offered to meet up with them to try to connect and see realistically what they're asking and what falls under our. We have been emailing each other back and forth for the last month and have not been able to connect yet. But it should happen, not should, it will happen before our next meeting. So more to follow on that. If anyone wants to be a part of that conversation, I can try to make it work, but based on difficulty Ashley and I have had connecting, I don't know. Scheduling.
So just to clarify, Tia, just to detail exactly their concerns and then figuring out how our committee can.
If we can support them in any way.
Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
whether it's acting as a voice, filling out an event.
Okay.
Because some of the stuff they're asking, like that they, not asking, that they really would like to see happen, is not really something that we can take on within what we do. So just really trying to sit down, because the conversation ended up, it got very long last month, and so we wanted to just kind of make sure that time was well spent.
We understand. Baskets.
Yes, and then making sure that it is something that aligns with what we can do.
And I'll say this because we run into the quorum issue. The housing elements, since that's through Bismarck Public Health, that's Ann Clary's portfolio, and then the mayor. They, Sacred Pipe, because they helped me with my initiated measure for public transportation. They actually invited me to be part of that, but since the mayor and Ann were already part of it, it would have to be a notice meeting. So I'm an advocate for the corporate takeovers of the manufactured home parks. So I can share that information, but it ends up being a little wonky on the conversation because the three of us, we have to dance around the quorum issue.
Thank you.
But yeah, just a real quick thing. Parktown was just purchased in Mandan. They've evicted 31 people in the last 5 weeks. So it's creating some ripples.
Can I jump in?
You don't have to ask permission.
Thank you. I appreciate you bringing that to light because it's something that we've been talking about in the circles that I've been with also. Do you know if the city has plans not only looking at that, but looking at corporate buying of the houses in our market that they're then turning into rentals? In my townhouse complex.
You and I should talk
Okay.
outside of this. There's all kinds of
Got it. Thank you.
threads
So
here.
that's
that-
Good to know. Yeah, in my townhouse complex over the last 2 years, corporate entities have been buying up the units and then trying to rent them out, and they're fighting with the HOA board right now. It's getting really crazy. Sorry.
No, it was just, no.
So more to come next month on that. It's just been a little chaotic.
Okay.
Just a quick update on these are your neighbors. The last statistic I saw was 707 downloads in a month period. So we are increasing fairly significantly each month. Carl was our last aired guest. You guys absolutely have to listen to that episode. If you don't listen to any other ones, listen to that one.
I learned more from him that 30 minutes than I have in the past 2.5 years I've been on committee with him.
Yeah.
I had no idea some of the stuff he was doing, no clue.
I'll help myself. That's the only one I've ever listened to.
Yeah, it was, we've had great guests, but I think it was just, we both learned absolutely so much. This month, October, we have, hopefully, we're trying to get Christina Sambor. We have,
Amanda Godfrey,
Amanda.
Make a Wish.
and then November, we've got Commissioner Risch and Holly Triska from the State Refugees.
Sydney Hubbeson's our next one.
Next one, will be Air. Yep. That's next week.
You already,
Oh, yeah, I already edited it.
you already ended it.
This is what happens when I do things in a timely fashion, I forget, so. Okay, anything else you wanna add?
Oh, but before we know it, we're gonna have 50 and then hopefully get the microphone. Get a little statue once you have 50 podcast episodes.
So again, share, listen, I think we're gonna just continue to grow. They do, in my opinion, continue to get better. I went through all 40 photos that had been shared by Kaylin. It was really neat to just see over the time who we've all had on, so. Okay, we're gonna go into the humanitarian award nomination form. We should all have copies. It's one thing here. Oh, no, my bad. Community conversation forum. Okay, just kidding, fuck that. So Katie, Gabby, and myself met on Saturday. As we discussed at the last meeting, a topic of conversation will be stable housing. We're trying to figure out the wording for it.
Well, I like keeping the word access in there, but access to stable housing. When we think about fair housing versus safe housing, I just feel like access to stable housing could be well received. I think the question came up was when we were looking at those questions and what we're gonna be asking and not wanting to shift them too much from previous conversations, because I think those questions are really relevant. So I would just wanna have access still in there.
Did you say access to stable housing?
Yes.
And then, like Katie said, our game plan is to keep those 3 questions as consistent as possible over the course until we find the need to adjust them. We made a list of organizations and or people that we were thinking we could invite. I'm gonna read through them. And then if there's anyone that you think of that we didn't list or someone that you're like, absolutely ask them, please let me know. First, we were going to ask Geraldine if she would maybe consider being a moderator on this one, since you are in the know. So you'll consider it, is what you're saying. I'll send you an email with the actual date and time and everything, and then you can just let me know. And we were thinking of asking, do you think Micah would be a good co-moderator with Geraldine?
Maybe. I don't know if you guys know who Micah was. He was at the last one. He's from protection advocacy, but he utilized the wheelchair and had a lot of issues in regards to accessible housing when he moved here from Wynot. And he does stuff with the legislature and sort of advocating for accessible housing as well. I've heard him testify before. So he's kind of shy, but I'm sure if someone else would do it, he would do it.
So if they call.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was kind of our thought process there. We definitely want to invite Ashley or Cheryl or somebody from Sacred Pipe, since they seem to be spearheading a conversation about this. Potentially Ministry on the Margin or F5 as a nonprofit, working more, that's more towards the like reintegration in, like, from prison, kind of our mindset there.
I would say F5 more than Ministry on the Margin, because there's significant challenges with like the background checks and those type of things.
Yep, and we thought about that, but we also thought maybe Sister Kathleen could do a hat, because she does know some of that. But so that's kind of our list there.
She can be in every conversation.
Yes, she did.
Youth Works, you recommended
I just thought,
Mark. I can't
well, you
remember.
guys know me, I'm always a little biased but there's a lot going on in our community right now, especially as it relates to older adolescents, transitional age youth, and housing. And I thought that we should consider someone like Mark Heinert, who's the VP there. He's just a really well-spoken person, strong advocate. I think what we have to think about with housing is we're always going to be thinking about housing versus individuals experiencing homelessness. And they obviously support homeless, trafficked youth, a lot of interesting, but
Chelsea Flory might be one too. She's head of the whole human zone board for all of Brevard County. The LIHEAP, working with elderly.
What was the name?
Chelsea Flory,
she's Burley County Human Service Zone.
director.
Yeah, she's great.
We also have someone with lived experience. legal aid potentially from the legal, like what are the actual laws? Where can we find that information? We have housing authority, which I think was Burley County, right?
They're different. The zone does child welfare and eligibility,
Okay,
and then
Foster
the,
care,
Yeah.
aging services, there's a lot of
Yeah,
things in it.
so I think the housing authority would be the ones that's issuing the HUD vouchers and things like that.
so I could find a point of contact there if nobody has one off the top of their head. We have North Dakota Continuum of Care.
That was just an idea, the continuum is the, I don't know if they're HUD funded, but HUD appointed committee that looks at just housing overall, but that would be more systemic rather than community based.
Another person I think should be Jasmine, because she's been doing like a lot of placement for me.
Yeah.
Yep, and we did actually, now that you say that, that's what my handwriting here says was Global Neighbors, yeah, but Jasmine specifically. So we were thinking that 5 to 6 is, we think it's good to ask 6 to begin with. Backups. And then the backups, yep. So if we were to, oh, and one other thing, do we know any state, like legislators out of Bismarck that work this pretty heavily or?
I think Devers is the
Yeah.
one working with manufactured home parks. He and I are on the phone a lot.
That'd be good, because we had talked about, after you had brought that up at the last meeting, that it would be good to have representation from that space, that recognizing that's a big growing issue in the community. So I think that that's helpful, because we weren't sure if that'd be the place where you have somebody with lived experience who's comfortable coming and speaking, but I think that would make sense too.
Touching on that, not only are people being shut out in that way in affordable and accessible housing, but with the full credit policies that are running rampant in the city. When you have new Americans or people coming off the street or youth who are trying to get into housing who have no credit and they're being turned away and then also taken advantage of by private renters who are charging exorbitant rates because you don't have credit. So
And that's the frosting. It's way worse than that.
Yep.
Your conversation makes everything.
So if we were to rank the first top 6, if we assume Geraldine and Micah are going to be moderators, I believe Sacred Pipe, are we all on board with that? That they're one of the first 6 that we ask?
I would ask a question. They're having housing conversations also. Are we gonna be butting against them in this? Like, is?
I think they wanted to be part of the conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, and I
They
think,
came specifically last meeting, I think, because
To
of that.
talk about
Yeah.
and they were some of the, I think Ashley was on the booth specifically, so just discuss our next topic too. So
Out of the 3 organizations that represent that nationality, they seem to be the most engaged right now.
So, okay, so the other ones that we really focused on were the either F5 or Ministry on the Margins, so reintegration, Youth Works for that transitional age youth, Housing Authority, Dick Devers, legislator, legal aid, and then either Bismarck Global Neighbors or Office of Legal Immigration was the other. So like New Americans. Actually, that's 6.
So I'm gonna assume, I'm gonna bring this up because it's my forte, is that we're gonna use Micah as the accessibility thing, because none of those other organizations that you're talking about will talk anything about accessibility.
Okay, so what would a recommendation?
What about would have been my recommendation, but
Would it be better to have Micah as a panelist rather than a moderator?
Because he would be also that lived experience and, okay.
And I know like, working with High Plains, we talked to a lot of people. I think they had to sort of shoot.
United Way.
United. That would be a great thing, because they have like a lot of people transiting right.
The workers there in them.
Yeah, I've dropped a few people, they have like parents. Even the police have this spoken to. They're part of the housing conversation.
Oh,
Okay, so, is this committee okay with the subcommittee making the decision on the first 6 that we're gonna ask? Okay,
So I would just say if we're looking at maybe having Micah as a panelist.
Yep.
If Geraldine would know somebody she would want to co-host with that is informed about this, kind of like how I was able to bring Brianna in. Sometimes it helps when you kind of have a relationship as co-moderators.
Ashley was actually.
I was thinking too, if we could actually bring Sacred Pipe on as a co-moderator,
Yeah,
because they have a lot of knowledge. So I'll reach out to Ashley since her and I have been emailing every other day.
I think too, usually our moderators have brought in some knowledge.
Yeah.
Too, so it's like we're not, if she's as a moderator, we're not using her knowledge. Yeah.
Any follow-up questions, concerns on community conversations?
they can feel
Can you give me the date? Do we have the date down for sure?
Yeah, we do. I have it in emails, I just gotta find it.
Do we have?
November 21st. I have at 6 p.m.
Yep, that's,
at the public library.
yep, I have it booked already with B, I just don't have it in my head.
Do we have it down? So
That's a Thursday. At 6 p.m.
How do you spell B's name? Is it B-E?
Yeah. Sales might be able to get their opinion on the sound.
Yes.
That's-
Yeah, and I think our issue last time was, 1, the microphones kept dying, and then 2, we were also working with a lapel mic that sounded different than the 2 handheld mics. So I might even reach out and see if they have an additional.
Is that the Wednesday before
I
Thanksgiving?
did know. I'm trying to, my
Thursday.
email's not pulling up.
And yep, it's the Thursday before Thanksgiving.
Only part of that in North Dakota, you're right in the heart of hunting season.
True.
Six o'clock on Thursday would be an issue.
No, it's 11/14.
It's 11:40.
It's November 14th.
4D, which is in beach.
The
So,
event.
pardon me, November.
Oh,
I think we,
oh, haha, you're right. I have both of them blocked. My apologies.
I didn't have me.
I was thinking the 21st in my head,
it's
so.
the 14th is what we have the room reserved.
The November 14th is the event, not November 21st. I had both dates blocked, sorry.
We both, I had neither.
And I think if we just do the water and, I mean, I don't think we need snacks or anything, honestly, so.
Even the water. Well, that's what we get more people.
I'll just bring a case of those small bottles again or whatever, so.
Did nobody grab snacks and stuff?
Last time we just had water, but even that, a lot
We had
of
to
people
like
like.
random cookies too, I thought, didn't we?
Yeah, yeah. Like you had, actually, there was a lot left over because you
Oh,
were
we didn't have
trying
any.
to send people home with it.
Yeah, that was my bad. That time I made it way too.
I put a major dent personally.
I overbought, and then I had everything like defrosted, so I was like, I was gonna make it.
Okay, are we all good with community conversations? My goal is to have the list and emails out absolutely no later than Monday. The invites will be on. So. Moving on to the humanitarian award nominations now. So we've got you got a smaller packet that's the organizations, and we got a larger packet that's individuals.
So there's an individual one in the organization one.
Yes, so the top one, which is Paula and Dakota Children's Advocacy Center, that's actually an individual nomination for Paula, so can't really rip it out because, oh yeah, you can, there's nothing else on the back, so rip that one out. And we'll go over organizations first. Okay, so as we're looking at these, I'm gonna read what we are awarding individuals, really quickly. It's right on
Doing individuals first.
organizations. But same thing, we are recognizing an individual business or nonprofit organization that's exhibited leadership in the area of human rights. Recognizing people that educate, identify, protect, and promote personal dignity with a focus on eliminating discriminatory barriers that would prevent people from reaching their full human potential. So we have to look at it, the nominations from that lens, as we go forward with these. So if you guys want to go ahead, it looks like, and I'm going to ask Gabby, because we have two nominations. We have Heartview and we have Sanford Health. I don't know if you have to step out, but I would assume that you probably should not step out. Yeah. So if you guys want to read through and we can, someone wants to start a conversation between Heartview and Sanford Health.
Are we like making points about who we want?
Yes.
Yes. Is Gabby okay to do it?
Yes, I think so.
Alright.
I just don't think she should vote.
I want Sanford, and the reason is because I think the past 2 years, it's really like done a lot of work, especially like employing like diverse population. And I think their outreach effort to this communities have been amazing. They're lagging in housing. Excuse me. But they've been doing like quite a good job, like keeping the people that they bring into the community super engaged and also just reaching out. So I think I'm probably more towards about that.
I do like your point that, I mean, just about every event that we have a group at Sanford has been at this last year. Which I think should be good.
And also just to add to a point to Sanford, I think we Ministry of the Margin, they like the same one the organizations. Me selling Sanford again. You like if we give it to Sanford when we're opening we're shining lights on in the community, but in a lot of I don't know.
I do think one thing that we need to ask ourselves as a committee is it's hard to take our personal bias of knowing the organizations and the people out. So are we going to take into consideration the work that we know, or are we going strictly off what was written? Because that doesn't have to, like, not so much with the organization, because both of them are very well-written nominations. But if there's any suggestions on that, I don't know, I can't remember what we've done in the past. Is it strictly off what's written or kind of our knowledge as well?
In the past, the ones that I've sat on, people have spoken on,
Okay.
but the basis and the foundation of the decision needs to be based off of the nomination, but you are able to share, things that you do know about it. In looking at both of them, I mean, they're very well written.
Yeah.
So both nominations. It's difficult for me, I'll just give my input since I'm blabbering. In looking at Heartview, it focuses on working with people dealing with substance abuse and use disorders. But when it goes into it, it talks about, reducing stigma within the community, recovery and education within the community, protecting and promoting acceptance of individuals, and getting all community members back and being productive members of the community. It talks a little bit about, it has been a consistent voice in advocating for medication use as a pathway to recovery, educating sober living facilities, support groups, employers, and other community agencies. So it's out there sharing its message. It works with incarcerated individuals at the Penn, Dakota Women's Correctional Rehabilitation Center, Burley County Morton. It goes on and on and on. At the same time, it keeps its facilities somewhat limited to be able to take care of Medicaid patients, which are the least served within our community. It's difficult for me, you know. They're working on reducing discrimination to patients looking for housing, employment, and acceptance in the community. So they're not just a treatment center. They have a huge impact on humanitarianism within the city. And then I look at Sanford, and I mean, you're correct, Geraldine, over the last few years, it's been like night and day in being able to see one of the larger employers within our city become active within the community. It's not just here to make a profit or turn a profit. The first things I started hearing, and they touched on it in here, is friends of mine who are working up there talking about placing emphasis on caring for Native American and Indigenous populations in a culturally informed manner. I work with the infectious disease department, and they advocated to change the standards of when you're eligible for a liver transplant or liver medications dependent on different things. Other areas, you had to be sober for so long before you could even begin to think about something like that. And staff at Sanford actively advocated to get those rules and regulations changed. And that, to me, was unbelievably amazing to start hearing movement like that. And you go through this, and I mean, they've touched on every area that we as a committee work on, and that of the underserved populations within our community, they have their hands into it. So not only are they becoming employers and investing in our community financially, but they're investing in our community, period. So I would tend towards Sanford at this point in my thoughts.
It will be hard for me also because my nonprofit partners and offers art classes weekly at Hartview.
Yeah.
So we can see what a change Hartview has came over the past 5 years since we've done that, and how the people that they support have grown exponentially from their program. And then themselves, we've had several students who have been through the program who now actually teach the classes for us. So just, we've seen the growth of people in particular. On the other side, is my mom was actually in Sanford not too long ago, just to see the care that she received and how they prioritized the things that she found as important as a patient, which you don't always foresee in different health facilities, and just how, as you've said, they've grown exponentially over the past few years, and how they've really assisted in get healthcare in a different way, especially in rural North Dakota. I mean, I think I would probably pick Sanford too.
It's tough because I've seen the work Harvey has been doing also. I know.
I don't want that and that's kind of what my thought process is. I know Hartview also, I know a few employees there, so the work that they do, the partnerships that they have are significant, and their impact is significant in the community. What I think stands out about Sanford for me is not only the involvement in the community, but they're involved, like DE&I has become a naughty word, and they're sticking to it. They're supporting organizations that a lot of companies at that level aren't willing to put their name on, really showcasing the need or their desire to work with underserved populations. So I also lean towards Sanford. Just leaves you, Katie.
This is hard, actually. My bias, I'm just gonna own it to start, is coming from like the behavioral health perspective, right? I've worked with a lot of young people and adults that haven't felt safe and accepted, especially in emergency departments here in our city. Really both emergency departments, and I've had some lived experience with that and some of my family members. As a citizen of Bismarck, I didn't know a lot of this work was happening and what is written and outlined in this nomination before I became a part of this committee. I know that I'm relatively new to the committee. I just like how both of these nominees are really responsive, right? Like what I know about Heartview as well is like, you know, they're responding to me. I've had personal conversations with Kurt too about why aren't you serving adolescents? That's gonna always, but you know, they're pretty overwhelmed with the adult need and those with substance use disorders in our town, but they're doing a lot of, you know, family support work and all of those types of things. I think from these nominees, I would lean towards Heartview, especially knowing a lot of the work that they've done in legislation, Kurt and otherwise, and really spearheaded a lot of the ways that we are treating individuals with substance use, not only here, but across the state. I mean, obviously they've expanded into Dickinson and have other treatment facilities. I think a lot of the response work too is in relation to, you know, epidemic related to opioids. And so I think that they've really spearheaded that in our community. So I think that would be my vote for now.
So should are we okay voting officially in front of everyone? On
Yeah.
slide sheets, okay.
Oh, no.
So we're just gonna do a by
These are both
hand
great
thing.
nominations.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
You can't tell me you've never been on a board. All right, so we'll raise our hands if our vote is for Sanford. Okay, and vote for Hartfield. Okay. So does that mean Sanford mathematically? Are we just going strict? Because we're gonna, the next one, there could potentially be ties, so,
Right.
okay. All right, so Sanford is our organization. All right, so we're going to move on to the individuals now, and there's a lot here. So we're gonna break it down. We've got Paula Kondo from the Dakota Children's Advocacy Center. We have Brandon Pritchard, who is a legislator. We have Casey Nelson. I believe there's two for we have name of John. And then, yeah, so Jonathan Fry's been nominated twice. And then we have Marco Barada, which was nominated multiple times.
How many nominations were from Marco?
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Mario, I'm guessing Marco 7.
And there's one
And
more.
then 1 for Micah. Yeah, so we have 7 for Marco. I'll just start with my opinion. I am looking at this from a lens similar to like military awards, where we have awards for service and impact, and then there's awards for heroism and valor. I look at these nominations and knowing the story of what Marco did, and I don't know, Doug, if there's an opportunity to work with the city or this police department. I look at the award based on his action more as an award of heroism. And I don't know if we do something with that. And I'm open to anyone else's conversation about that, but
Yeah, I don't know how heroism is defined. It'd be interesting for us to look at, but I think that like an act of heroism, right? Like it obviously speaks to who he is. And he obviously has a lot of other qualities that probably make him a good human, and we're very lucky to have him in our community. So I feel like we have to recognize as a committee, it's really important I think I would also agree with you, Tia, that I think that we should try to at least advocate for an opportunity for him to be recognized in some other capacity.
And Gabby did have an interesting idea, about a potential new award.
Yeah, my thought was, with These Are Your Neighbors, and like you said earlier, it's been growing in popularity, and just thinking of what that podcast highlights as I was reading through a lot of these nominations, I kind of thought to myself, why don't we have a These Are Your Neighbors or This Is Your Neighbor award, where we are able to recognize people who are doing such valuable things like what Marco did that night. Because I think we've received other nominations in the past of people who are doing really amazing work in our community or doing things to protect our citizens. But the nominations or the work they do doesn't fully align with what the humanitarian award technically is, or like when it kind of like talks about specifically when you talk about your nominee to focus on things like leadership and education, and maybe that doesn't have to be the sole focus, but there's just, I think, opportunity maybe there, and especially if I know we requested a budget increase, and I know we had kind of talked about what could that go towards, when we had met with you, Commissioner Connolly, last month, and I think that if we are granted that increase, that could be something too, that we could even utilize some of those funds towards to be able to, I think, recognize individuals who do, like the things that he did.
Agree. What he did was amazing, but I don't think I don't think it fits in with this exact award.
My question would be, like, were these nominations like from his neighbors, friends, family, so
I don't know what
like
it's.
community or community members, because we don't want to like get into a place where it's like, people like thought he was speakery and we like, I don't know, like some nominations I want to know if they came from his neighbors, friends, so I didn't know about the story, this is my first time.
And it does say who makes the nominations also, and they're not, they aren't of the same familial name or anything. And I think at times we have in the past where, a group of people, I think, Hope Manor had a bunch of people at one time who kind of got together. Judith Roberts was nominated by quite a few at one time. And so I think it's just a group of people. I agree with you. We want to be careful with how and to make sure that it's not committee members that are making nominations and stuff. I do know that the police department has done awards before.
Yep, and
To the best of my knowledge, such as citizen awards. There was someone who was nominated for stopping a thief, and was recognized and given awards and stuff from the police department before. My not knowing this story until just when we got these sent to us, reading through it, I am in agreement that it's a hero award, and I really think we should help advocate for that. I just don't believe it fits within the humanitarian award guidelines that we have.
So I think we focus on the award right now, and then we can circle back to the These Are Your Neighbor award. Even if that's potentially added to next month's agenda on that. But we can work with city admin on whether we submit a letter of support on behalf of Marco and compile all of the nominations or something to the city of Bismarck, showcasing community members' wish for him to receive something, as well as that he acted in a way of heroism.
We can check with PD and see what their awards have looked like in the past, if there's nomination or if it's just of an event. You wanted to contact a specific officer if they take nominations coming from HRC as well as a public meeting.
So any further conversation on Marco with that being in mind? Okay, so that's going to leave us with Paula, if you guys want to read through hers. Micah. Yes. And we have John's eye, PC. No, PC. Nelson and Brandon.
You see Jonathan and Micah.
Yep, and then we have, yep.
That's who nominated him. Yes, Ghost. Yeah, yeah. No. I hate to, but I would look at the people.
Okay, so the Arc of Justice Award, is that what John and I received earlier? Is this nomination says I'd like to nominate him for the Arc of Justice Award? I believe that's what he received. No,
No, the
Okay.
Art of Justice is the North Dakota HRC that I received
oh,
this year.
There's
You may
for a
think
different
they're
one.
nominating for a different one.
or it could be a. He's a county sponsor, does.
He was nominated for that.
I guess there's still another nomination for him.
So Jonathan's nominated Casey, he's nominated.
Yes.
You just see it like.
Does everyone feel like they've had some time, I don't know how much people read before filling in here, so. So I'll go first, and just to be very honest. I believe Brandon Pritchard has put into legislation or voted on legislation that goes directly in opposition to the work that we do. So I would recommend removing him from consideration. And the nomination itself doesn't say much about the actual work. That's my thought process on that one. And I'm open to conversation about that.
Madam Chair, I would just recommend that we at least look at
Okay.
all of them. I do have some thoughts on this also, but I feel already in setting one aside and looking for, a different venue that possibly just to look through all of them and kind of go through the vetting process of that kind of thing would be open to that.
So you're saying you want to talk about each of them?
I think that it should be open for anyone on the committee to be able to talk about any of the nomination.
I think she just gave like a reason why.
I apologize. That's how I meant it, was my opinion. I didn't mean.
Got it.
Yes, no.
Okay.
Everyone, no, my bad. It's just-
I was reading well, I was
No,
listening.
my bad. I'm sorry. That's what, that is my personal opinion.
Okay.
My personal. Please don't ever pop that. Jerry.
Please don't call me Madam Chair.
I know, like,
Love it.
Okay,
That was me opening the conversation about the first one that is in my head. So we'll go around.
Are we all gonna discuss the same one?
I think that's probably the
Okay.
easiest way.
Okay.
I would agree with you, Tia. Well, first of all, I think just looking at it, not very detailed, doesn't give us a lot of insight into who Brandon Pritchard is and how he is educating and adding to, people thriving in our state. I do have similar concerns about some of his, things that he's introduced or supported within legislation, and that they don't support our mission. Yeah.
So I guess based on the assumption that what has been done or what is being referred to in this is that legislation, then I would argue that it's discriminatory legislation, and that goes against that.
I already gave my opinion.
I totally agree. I've been in the room when he's talked about that during legislative. I totally not. He goes adamantly against what we're for.
So in reviewing the nomination, it states Brennan has consistently stood up for the innocence of our state's children, but there's no work shown or noticed in here what that work entails. It goes further to say he's done more to protect children than any other member of the state, let alone the community. And I just refer to another nomination within this that would be Paula Condell with Dakota Children's Advocacy Center, who's had 24 years of advocacy for the innocence of children within our community. And I believe that just in that respect, doing legislative work, although it is a great honor for people to be able to do that, I find at times that some of this humanitarian work is more boots on the ground. And I would just say, comparatively, if we're looking at work protecting children, I would err towards Paula Condell in regards to that.
I think, I'll second you. I think Paul, I'm leaning towards Paul. He's been doing work for 24 years. That was the first thing to do. And who also show see him.
Do we want to just roll right into Paula's then?
Yes.
Okay. Is it all right if I come back to this one?
Yes.
Okay. I love everything about this nomination. I'm not going to lie. Looking at Paula's work that she's put in and being able to witness some of it, working with the mental health of children within our communities and especially traumatized children. I really appreciate the dedication that she's had within our community. That it's a community-based, child-focused organization working with children who've experienced physical and sexual abuse or neglect with the goal of promoting healing and justice is amazing. And the fact that they are based here in Bismarck, but also have expanded and done satellite and outreach across the state, especially in the Standing Rock Indian Reservation, where we in Bismarck see a lot of transmigration back and forth between those two communities and have a partnership there. This one honestly stood out the most to me. Not that any of the other nominees, nothing to disparage them. It looks like they've all done a lot of great work, but I really appreciate the work that Paul has done in a nomination for this.
I've seen the work that Paul has done as much as Dakota Children's Advocacy Center, doing very well. However, you're reading what she's been doing. She does whatever is needed, try to serve that population. That's not an easy population to serve. And she's worked tirelessly over the past 24 years and grown the organization to what it is today, which is exponential. So I agree that this one probably stood out the most for me as well. Is because of the work that they do for that population.
And I am in agreement with the work that they do is incredible. I'm probably a little bit biased towards it. I think the fact that they allow children specifically a safe space to share their story and not have to reshare it over and over again. As somebody who's been in that situation, like I understand the value of something like that. So, yeah, I think that the work they do is just incredible.
I think this one shows not about the work that is being done, but also about the impact of what's being done, what it means for our community and
I'm really supportive. I've worked professionally with Paula before, so I just say that out loud. I have a professional relationship with her. One thing that I really like about the CAC is children and adolescents and families can get services there no matter their insurance status. They work and they really demonstrate working across systems. And I think working across systems means educating and connecting, right? Like they work a lot with law enforcement, right? Because we're talking about forensic interviewing and prosecuting and all of those things that come. As far as I know, I don't want to, as far as I'm aware, I think they're one of the only mental health facilities here that is offering Spanish speaking therapy and mental health groups, which is really great. So the one thing I hear in this is obviously being really responsive, but I think Paula doesn't let anything happen without quality. It's not only about how do we create programs and services for children, but how do we do it really well from a mental health perspective that always has to be evidence-based, right? You know, individuals experiencing trauma and how they're treated there's a lot of research around it. And she always makes sure that whatever they're doing.
It really, when it touches on it, talking about how she promotes personal dignity with a focus on eliminating discriminatory barriers that would prevent people, and that's all people, all children are involved in this. They're not discriminatory about who is able to access these services based on beliefs or whatnot.
Go over Casey's really quick, or yeah. So it's tough for me based on just the nomination form. I'm not familiar with Casey. So I know there's not a lot of quantifiable data on this one. Like Paula, I do know what Dakota Outward does. I know they do great things in the community, but that's all I can go on.
there you go, nomination doesn't, it tells us some, but not a lot. Once again, just kind of looking at. Not that it doesn't necessarily, I guess, match up with the work, but it's just not maybe as well shown as some of the other nominations, unfortunately. But that Casey, I don't know Casey.
In knowing Casey somewhat in, different advocacy areas, I believe that Casey does some great work within the community. I really wish that they would have gone more into the various projects that, Casey has worked on to advance visibility. I do know that Casey has worked on the Pride events and has been the chair of the Pride Committee. And so has done some work there. I appreciate the work that Casey does in the community.
For John Fry.
Yeah. Yeah, can I interrupt for a second? I have to leave at 7. My son's birthday is today. He's 6. It's a big deal. But am I gonna mess up voting if I leave? Probably not, because we still have a quorum.
No, if you know, I mean, you know who you're voting for regardless.
Right.
Who knows? Okay, you're right. You won't mess it up. We still have.
Okay.
No, no. Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
And you could write the name down and hide it in case you need it.
Yeah.
Who do we want to do that?
You don't want the story on slip. I'm on the same- don't panic with that.
It's also my husband.
I gotta escape.
Same thing with John for me. I do know who he is a little bit more than Casey. And I know the work again that is being done by John and Dakota outright. A little bit more detailed informations.
Yeah, I like learning about John, just like, you know, facilitating a few talk and for support. It just details more of the types of things that Jonathan is doing, chairing events committees. Certainly in terms of like hierarchy, I would put John above Casey, just being able to learn. I don't know John and Casey, so. In terms of like the quality of the nomination, I think we should consider that.
I do also, I didn't realize, prior to reading this, the work that he did in the recovery community, as well.
I believe that Jonathan does some amazing work within our community. He's been active for years within our community, working not only with Dakota Outright, but with different organizations throughout the community, Great Plains Food Bank, Youth Works, and doing a lot of advocacy in different areas, not just in LGBTQIA plus community, for me, it's very difficult. Because I appreciate the work that Jonathan does. I still am leaning a little more towards Paula at this point, though I do believe Jonathan does some amazing work within our community. It would be a close second for me.
Start here, Geraldine. And then Micah is our final one.
Started up. Seems to be an awesome nomination. I really appreciate the work that Micah has done. For me, consistently being within the community, advocating for the needs of people with disabilities is extremely important to our community. Not only does that, but works in testifying and whatnot with legislation and working in different areas. For me, it would be a close second with Jonathan. It would be between Micah and Jonathan for a second, but for me, it's still Paula is kind of.
Yeah, mine would be Paula, and then one of the things I like about Micah is that what we need in our community are people like Micah. That I like the fact that the person that nominated is like, he doesn't like praise, he doesn't like the area of focus. He might be quiet, he might not, but he's doing these things constantly and consistently that are leading to change. And I feel like actions like that need to be recognized. I feel like Paula does have a much more sort of leader, public facing role and all of those types of things. And so I do think that we should consider opportunities to recognize people like Micah. Micah, to me, would be a great candidate, I feel like, too, for like the neighbor award, you know what I mean? But I would do Paula and then Micah.
I know Micah, he was at the last one, but I've done legislation with him, and he's exactly like this nominee said. He's very doesn't toot his own horn, he's very shy about it, but he does advocate very well for people with developmental disabilities. Like everything I testified on last session, he pretty much testified on last session. And he went to a bunch of bills that he probably didn't have to, because he's a lawyer for P&A, that's his job, but he chose to then go to things that were important for people with developmental disabilities, and he has lived experience, because he utilizes a wheelchair, and issues with accessibility, issues with housing, all of that. With that, I would probably put Paula first, second. I do agree with Katie that he would be a good one for if we do type of these are your neighbors, or this is your neighbor or something.
You wanted, if you did point out that Paula is in a more public facing role, and then that got me thinking the individual that wrote her award is also in marketing, which typically, so the quality of the written nomination as well is probably going to be higher because of that experience.
And I did think there was quality writing.
Yeah, you're right.
About Micah too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have the individuals here because I've done a lot of work. Or I think like most of the table events I've been to is, and I've spoken to you because I am on by students. All right, 40 years of career every day. So yeah, but yeah. There's my different companies.
We'll take a vote then. We'll just, everyone say a name, and then if we're tied, then we'll go into that.
All the same time.
Oh, you said Mike, are you sticking with Micah? Okay,
Micah.
Paula.
I'm a Micah.
One time. See you one. No, one of
Well, here's my thought on it. Mhm. Here's my thought on why I switched from Paula to Micah.
Please explain.
Paula just recently was nationally recognized. And to me, I feel that that's a wonderful honor and maybe something that we can recognize at a later time. Micah did not just receive a national Children's Alliance Leadership Conference Award. So what better way to recognize the work of someone within our community than to recognize them in our way that we're able to.
Can I also picture Micah, just to change your mind? Micah, he moved from Minot, and when he came into the community, he jumped straight to work. He didn't like wait to know the community, like he discovered the community while at work. That was the first thing that moved me about him when I first spoke to him. He was just moving from Minot, and was sharing about the housing issues he saw as a lawyer and the employment issues he saw over there. And immediately he was like, he's going straight into work when he came to Bismarck. So for me, I think like us giving him the award, it would like encourage other people like we see. There are so many people out there who, I remember when I got the award the first year, like people in my community, they stepped up. There were a lot of people who were like, they wanted to do more work. They wanted to be involved with me. They wanted to know places I went to. And an established organization like Thousands organization, I feel like they've been here for years. People know what they do. But with somebody like Micah, it's going to encourage the people around him to do like more work. And his organization is not like for, they're just starting to be done in the city. So I feel like shining the light on them is a great opportunity. And yeah, and disability is like a big thing in our community that we have. It's just that it looks like our focus is actually getting where that we should keep shining the light on. This would be a great opportunity for us to keep that light on.
2 cents in for you. I don't know either one of them. So Dakota Advocacy is going to represent what they do, the great work that they do, year in and year out. And like you said, Jason, she got the national award. They're always going to have that her presence in the community. So when you do, I met Micah actually at the events for the vets for the first time. Didn't even know the background that was here. But the environment that he's in legislatively, there was a strong push by the governor to limit resources to the disabled, which makes the work in the actual mission statement of this committee harder. If those limit, there was even talk about closing Grafton completely, which is the last resource for that community. The lawsuit of 1986 promulgated so much growth in positive ways, but there is some financial challenges there because it's overwhelming and everybody fighting for those dollars. And just what the Human Relation Committee represents in your goal, you'd actually be elevating his probably platform to advocate for those communities by encouraging that.
I appreciate that additional context.
And then if we end up tied again, can we, since we're missing essentially two, Carl and Sassy, can we just, it's an even number, but could we, if we end up tied, can we say these are the two that had the majority of the vote? Vote, please.
To those two,
The two committee members that aren't here.
yeah, I think we could send out an email and
After we revote.
After we revote, if people have been changed their mind. Okay,
do that.
all right, second vote, Geraldine. Jason.
Jonathan, no, I'm just. My God.
I'm floating Micah.
I'm still with Micah.
I'll do Micah too.
Okay, Micah?
Was it 4-1?
No, we're all on,
Like,
so.
6-0? Sorry.
Okay, Katie, you need to leave and then
Yes.
we'll get moving on.
Sorry, I felt like I was gonna leave it on awkward time.
No, sorry for holding you up.
Oh, no, you're fine.
I'll see you
Happy
Saturday
birthday to
morning.
your little one. Yes.
Do you know what time do we have to be done time?
I couldn't find it, but I will.
Was it
send that other.
Brian said it was-
Yes, I will. Yeah.
I'll see you tomorrow, so I'll ask.
Good to meet you, Commissioner Conlon.
Okay, I have a thought with this, just recognizing that so many of us know these nominees, which is unsurprising, just considering the work with this space. Moving forward, does it make sense to potentially blind nominations? Just to help remove some of the bias.
So even if we would know
Like not names?
We
no
might-
names associated with it, I like that.
Yeah, I just think of with some of the things I've gotten to do for work with scholarships or other
Yep.
awards and things. Oh, that reminds me, I to do that plan to hear by tomorrow. We always blind those, which has been helpful because there have been times where people that I have known and fully believe in everything they do, that they should receive that recognition, but I know that I'm a little bit more biased towards like, oh, I gotta vote for them because of this, and that might just help us in the future, just recognizing that. I mean, last year, I didn't know our nominees very well, but as I've gotten more and more engaged,
Yeah.
I either have met most of these people personally, or I'm familiar with them just from community engagement, and that I think just makes it a little bit more difficult with it, yeah.
And I oppose that. Opposition leader. The reason why I oppose it is, say somebody from my community writes maybe a nomination, it might not be as powerful as the marketing one you got over here. And our inputs like coming, Bismarck is so small. We get to like, and we get to run over each other. Different businesses. And another thing is, I just feel like, the vote here is what the party like bring. It's not like there's no democracy in here. You might pitch your point and at the end of it, it's not what I want to do. And, but I just feel like keeping it open would definitely like, it will open us to like more people.
It
to get the nomination.
like creates like a barrier.
Well, I think what you guys just did with having to have two votes and then discussing more falls more in line with what Dean's describing. Having that background information because you know who you are, your application wasn't as impressive. For you to make that decision, you know, I like your idea a lot, Gabby. I think size of our community and having that potential background application may not be as shiny. Information.
Yeah, I do think if we did blind nominations, we would have to like up the standard or the expectation of what the nomination and specify that we need more data.
Even with our interview process, there could be a generic if you developed a scoring card. So you have that. We've had some hires to where the person that scored better going in, after the discussion, it was the next people that actually got hired. But having that to where you're actually thinking concretely, where it's checking the concrete before the personal gets in. And then if it is a tie through the discussion, then you can add that element. And maybe that's enough to create the one side or the other.
Let's not forget that AI can write really good nominations. So important that we have that human aspect in the wrong guy.
I do think we could add this to the next agenda though, because I do think we all need to potentially with the scorecard or something like that. And there's some options I think to improve. So it's long.
Yeah, a whole year.
Yeah.
Opening it up to other business.
I would just caution everyone, even though we just voted to not let anything out about the winners.
Okay.
You know the burden.
Oh, true. Be on the TV in 2
Yeah.
days.
Well.
Right.
We'll get a chance to watch it.
Yeah, somebody had to carry my burden for me. So I know.
Yes, and I am horrible at surprises if I know somebody like, okay, no other business?
The initiated measure for public transportation, public safety kind of relates, doesn't relate. What I would say is, learn about it independently. And then if you want to bring it up at the next meeting, you can. But the public health, and I talked to Global Neighbors about this. I talked to a lot of people last year about this going into it because everybody has their different dynamics and things. But public health had their strategic plan roll out on June 10th. And the top four: senior housing, affordable housing, childcare, and public transportation. And access to transportation, getting around town, especially with our seasons, can impact 3 out of the 4 of those very directly, and the other one a bit too.
So you said those that like community health needs assessment or something else?
Yes, community health needs assessment came out on the 10th. And this same measure, with the exception of one difference, passed in Mandan on June 11th.
Thank you. Any other business? We got one. I have plenty, so if you guys want to keep those all. All right, we will,
And I can
Thank
get
Darcy.
10,000 copies.
Marcy, I'm so sorry. No, Marcy for being here. And
Thank
being
you
able
so
to
much,
document it.
especially for doing this.
And then that's it. We're done.
Okay. Nice job, everyone.
As long as people stuff for Saturday.
Oh.
Oh, that's. You got a life with me. Anybody?